excited to host you, Puneet.
Yeah, great to be here, Mala.
Yeah.
Dinner was good too last night.
So tell us about yourself. Why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Puneet Gupta. I'm a founder CEO of a company called Amberflo. We provide AI governance, cost management, FinOps for people who are scaling their workloads into production, LLMs, and AI usage. We're venture backed, about 3 years, 4 years coming up into the startup. So I'm sure we'll dive into some use cases and just what we are seeing from a company perspective, our own journey, and use cases. But just by ways of a little bit of a background, prior to starting Amberflo, I've been in cloud computing for many years. I'm relatively early at AWS. I was a general manager there, joined back in 2011. Still early days for cloud computing in general, AWS in particular. But just phenomenal lessons learned. My team launched a few tier 1 AWS services. So through that journey, quite frankly, a lot of what we're doing today at Amberflo is informed from that experience. After that, I was a founding member of OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. They brought in a team from AWS. Wasn't part of that, but I knew that some of the folks was part of that team for a little while. Build that infrastructure, bring it to market. And what can I say? I've been in technology for 20 plus years. Love every minute of it. And boy, what are the place we're in right now? Just what a great time to be a founder.
Absolutely. Super exciting time with all the AI innovation and the wealth of experience that we bring after a certain point in our careers, right? And you are at that inflection as well. So would love to hear about how your idea has evolved over time. I remember that a couple of years ago when you were launching your product, it was basically building around LLMs. But since then you have taken multiple customers live and the product strategy has evolved. So tell us about the journey and where Amberflo is today.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. I think most founders kind of go through this. I think some land sooner than others in terms of product market fit and sort of the escape velocity. I guess we're somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. But yeah, I'll share with you, it is our story. I think it's an interesting one. As I was saying, the idea really sort of the spark, the genesis of the idea for Amberflo really came from time experience at AWS. So I'm sure many of you have seen, especially the folks in the tech background, an AWS bill. Right? It's a long and drawn out manifest. Of course, the numbers also striking usually for the CXOs. But if you look at it, it's pretty detailed, right? It's line item by line item. So while I wasn't part of the platform team, I was a GM for owning services, but it was early days. And when I joined the AWS, was re-architecting their metering and billing platform. So I had a little bit of a front row seat in the design of that. I was building a service. I was a little bit higher abstracted, so we had some unique requirements into that team. Anyways, long story short, what you see, how you see that bill being generated behind the scene, there's something called a metering service. And on two parts, one, just as a technologist, I was kind of taken in by that. It's a case study in distributed computing, if any of you are interested in that. One metric I think that's somewhat public I can share, even back in, I think 2016, that service was processing 2 billion meter events a second. That's all of you guys using AWS. Okay. Anyway, so I realized from a business perspective, when we used to go into our Wednesday operations review with Andy Jassy and everybody, all the data that was brought into that meeting was on the backs of what the metering service used to publish. So it's telling us who's using what, how much, when, where, what's the pattern. And you'd be amazed just the level of detail that was available. It was also striking for me at that place, just as an engineer turned product owner, it was the first place that I've been where product folks had direct insights into customer usage. Otherwise, at any other place, typically you route through, customer-facing teams, either CSMs, pre-sales, post-sales. So, you'll be saying, hey, get me in touch with this customer. I want to learn something. Here, I was ahead of the sales team because we had direct access to that data warehouse, and we could actually draw parallels. So that was just profound. I could sort of internalize that. And then the big idea was that I think as things move to the cloud, anyways, that train had already left the station. But our view was that more and more businesses will adopt a usage-based business model, right? So infrastructure had already proven that. But the big question was, will PaaS and the SaaS layer capitulate into a usage-based business model? So we took a leap of faith. We felt that it would, for a very simple thesis that if you're building on an elastic foundation, which is what cloud is, and this is Amberflow's thesis, that ultimately whatever it is that you're building must also exhibit elasticity, and that then will, transcend into your business model. So that's the genesis of Amberflow. We said we can build a metering layer because that was a missing layer in anybody's IT stack. So today we are a platform company. Our metering services are platform layer, and then sort of AWS style, we felt over time as market moved, we could layer a series of solutions on top of the metering foundation. So first one, Mala, was usage-based pricing and billing, and you helped us launch, I think that was a couple of years back. And then, well, who knew AI LLM landed on the scene? I want to say, we'd always believed that there'll be some tailwinds. Nobody could have predicted that AI LLM will come at the force that it has. But that's yet another tailwinds to usage-based business model. And one of the vectors that we've seen open up in addition to billing is internal visibility. So billing faced inwards as chargebacks and showbacks. And more and more companies are wanting to now see how am I spending my AI LLM usage cost? And we've talked a lot about that, but I think very quickly people are saying, yes, I know my token usage is going up, but is it having an impact? And that's attribution, that's chargebacks, that's showbacks. So that's the background.
So what do you think we should watch out for if you're deploying LLMs at scale as an organization, which many of our CXOs in the audience are? What are some insights you can offer? Yeah.
I'll share with you, some case studies. I think it has moved pretty fast from a time where, at least last year, early part of last year, it was all a lot of just experiments, and even there was some perhaps doubt whether this will cut over into some real use cases or not. We're definitely seeing, I think, that hurdle cross. So, of course, it's still early, but you'd be surprised, like some old school companies are really leaning in. Kroger is one such example. They are ways ahead. So how are they managing from, let's say, experiments and moving into production?
So he got Kroger through a Founders Creative event where I interviewed him on stage.
Actually, yeah, there's a great story there. In fact, he was there and he hung around till we finished he curbsided us and we got talking. And by the way, just actually on that front, I think at least for some of the founders in the room, this would be interesting. So at the time, we were presenting our metering and billing solution. Super sharp guy, executive at Kroger, stuck around. And he said, I like what you have, but we're not quite ready for billing. But my problem is, I'll paraphrase a little bit, but it was just a profound statement. Like it was just like a spark, just kind of hit. He said, we've just come out of our yearly planning. And he was part of the corporate IT team. And he said, the corporate IT team has been given the strategic mandate to, and these are his words, to democratize the use of LLMs across 100 plus business units on a metered basis. Okay. Like they're that far ahead, right?
This was 2 years ago.
This is 2 years ago.
He basically gave you your problem statement.
He actually gave me the roadmap, both the problem statement and the roadmap. So, and he's been working with them all along. They've been a great design partner. And that's what I say, you would not expect somebody, a retailer out of Midwest, to be ahead of the pack. So back to the question, okay, what are companies seeing going from experiments to production, and then what is the framework and then the architecture that is being put in place? I'll sort of generalize it a little bit just to, and this is now validated across different landscapes, certainly large enterprises, but we're also seeing mid-market. So what is the need? The need is experiments are okay, experiments are great, but now we want to push into production. while they were in experiment phase and even in some level of production, he would say that, our LLM tokens usage is going like this. He said, the moment we have deployed agents, is going like this. For some of the things I think some of the others have already shared. Just the way AI architecture is, it inherently is predisposed to consuming more and more tokens. Okay. So that is just the AI, call it just the primitive, right? That's just how AI works. But the problem is increase in tokens usage does not necessarily correlate to increase in productivity or to work done. And that is the challenge from going from an experiment into production. Okay. So then how do you solve that? So you work your way backwards. The token usage is going up. What is the business imperative that I'm looking to solve? At the very high level, you are asking, how do I tie my AI and LLM spend to business outcome, to value? Okay. Now, that, of course, everybody knows it comes up in every business conjuncture. But for AI, the design principles and framework and the architecture are slightly different than perhaps in another model where you might have also encountered the same problem. Right? So just to draw the parallel, let's say cloud computing has now played out for 15, 20 years. Same problem there, right? How do I tie my cloud spend to business value? And there are certain tools out there. There's a whole category called cloud cost management that does that. I would tell you, so that's the old model. AI has whole different ways of how you're going to govern and how you're going to manage and attribute and allocate these costs. Just a simple anecdote so we can kind of come full circle on this. Cloud cost computing model was primarily based on taking a vendor's bill and trying to parse that and get some insights. That is not going to work for your AI and LLM use. You have to get ahead of the bill. And one of the ways that you do that is there's a new sort of sheriff in town, a new technology primitive called AI Gateway. You have to deploy that, and AI Gateway helps you manage the instrumentation layer. And on top of that, you can add a layer of business value.
AI Gateway is a piece of technology or a category of products?
It is a piece of technology. I mean, gateways have been around. As you know, everybody knows API gateways. It's established category, but your company's in there. AI gateways, think of them sort of as next generation API gateways. But how they operate and what they do is different from even the API gateways.
You don't play in that market?
So we are a full solution. Amberflo has an AI gateway built. So we are AI governance and FinOps. Our AI governance includes an AI gateway. And the FinOps then basically gives you a layer of the all financial attribution, who used what, how much, budgets, forecast, attribution.
Got it. Awesome. So how do you expect these AI gateways to get more centralized, and where will AI go once people have adopted it? Where's the next innovation? What's the next phase?
I think it's happening. I would just, my take to that question, I'll just take a step back. I mean, there's just so much happening. Anything is up for grabs. You can, if you have a domain expertise or something, go at it, and you can reinvent something with grounds up, taking an AI native approach. So that's the market opportunity, just again speaking from a founder perspective. Where we're seeing with companies, how they're scaling, then it's a function of what kind of company, what is it that you're trying to do. Two use cases I'll share. I think this will also give some perspectives at the CXO. So what we're saying is at the CIO level, depending again, like I said, the type of company. One is, I just signed up for all developers a Cursor license. Okay. Is it being used? How can I optimize that? And I think this whole space hasn't quite matured yet, but there's some early signs where you could deploy Cursor, but you can have Cursor point to your LLM or your purchased LLM. Let's say if you're using AWS Bedrock, could you point Cursor to use your version of LLM or your distro version of LLM? I think all of that is being shaken out. But anyways, AI gateway, AI governance is a big part of that equation. So CIO is saying, I want to first control my cost for my employees. That's one use case. The second is within an organization, the product-facing use cases. So the teams are actually building next-generation products or adding LLM into their product. They need visibility into what is being used, again, back to tie AI spend to business outcome. So support use cases, new product use cases, you take it by vertical. How do I have visibility? Here's basically the kicker. And you'd be amazed. I think we can easily wrap our head around that, something can be used 100x more. One customer can use an LLM and be using your product and engage, where another can use the same feature but have 100x use. I'll tell you, it could be 1000x more. And here's the reason. It all depends on the context window. So one customer of your product decides to upload a Word document or a large PDF. You've just blown the context window out the door. How are you managing that? So it's no longer $50 per user per month. You have to arbitrage your tokens. And then you also have to arbitrage, did they actually deliver value? And if it's not delivering value, you need something in real time so you can perhaps, downgrade to a cheaper model or something else. That's basically the AI governance.
We had the same problem in my last company. So as a founder, switching gears, now you build so many companies now, right? You're a multi-time founder?
A couple.
Just a couple of companies. Company building is like, eating pancakes with maple syrup.
On a good day.
And
otherwise, like this, it's like chewing glass.
Yeah, and you've thrived and not just survived, but really done well at AWS as well, which is quite an achievement in itself. So what are some leadership lessons you'll share with all of us?
I guess, again, I'll kind of break it up maybe as a founder journey and maybe working at a big company. I think founder, you have to prepare for the ride. It's just going to be the highs and lows. But I think if I could share maybe one of the advice that I got, fortunately, a little bit early on, is something that's hard to do is don't confuse momentum with progress. Okay. Fancy way of saying, check your false positives. So what's an example? All startups, I think, fall into this. We still do, despite the fact that, learn to say no. Especially, I know a lot of folks here have been asking for, looking for design partners. We did too. Don't get hitched with the wrong customer or partner. Right? They'll just take you down. And that's very hard to do as a founder because everything coming in, you want to grab onto it, right? Because you're looking for just somebody to pay attention. So hard to say no, but but that's a lesson learned and still learning on the founder journey.
I think that's incredibly good advice, but it could be an exit strategy too. Like if you're saying, that's what I did with my last company. We took AT&T live and I knew that I could not survive it. And we said, thank you. Show us the money.
For sure, but that's a good customer for you. What I'm saying is, I think a lot of folks here are building and you're still early. So getting a customer whose requirements are fundamentally different, it happens very often. People start patting you on the back. Yeah, I love your demo. Great meeting. That's what I mean. Don't confuse momentum or, with progress. Just, you have to kind of go to the next level and unpack. Is there something here?
So I think you picked a good question because this is a question that comes up in our accelerator quite a bit. As all our founders are landing design partners, they meet me one-on-one and ask me, should I sign? What should we do? This is exciting. Many of them are first-time founders. And I say, well, is it a repeatable problem? What's the scale? Can you do a TAM analysis of this point solution? And that's still very abstract because some of these founders are working on such niche solutions, like you saw that dermatology clinics. I've never met a dermatologist in my life. So I don't know, right? I don't know the answer. I'm just giving very generic advice. So what would you give?
See, then I think you'll just have to walk backwards. be clear about what is the problem you're solving. And then use that as the litmus test to see who you bring in, like who is your ideal design partner.
Your idea is going to keep mutating over time because the industry is changing, there'll be competition coming in, and you'll realize as you talk to your third design, prospective design partner that, hey, after all, this problem may not be large enough for me to solve or really hard to crack into. And so how are you picking and choosing? Because clearly you've changed a lot since I met.
Very true. So I'll share again, our journey. I think a framework would be that focus on a niche. Okay. I think that's the best framework. Like if there is to be a framework, that's the framework. But I'm sure there's some outliers that whatever you're building, depending on who you are, if you raise 50 million, you can go off and take off a bigger bite of the overall piece. But if you are a typical founder, just have the discipline to solve a niche that, and then find somebody who's really hurting with it. That will help you converge. We actually ourselves fell a victim to this. So I described, the metering and billing and how we launched. When we started the company, we were passionate about building the metering layer. By the way, for anybody who cares, there's another recent book that I've come across. I think it's recently published. It's called Fall in Love with the Problem, Not Solution. It's basically from the guys who started Waze. Check it out, amazing. I think a true founder, actual stories and how they kind of started that. So one is, start with a niche. Maybe your pitch is okay. You can say where you're going to be and ultimately what your vision is, but start small. We started actually a little bit falling in love with the problem. We wanted to build a metering service. We were just passionate about what this thing is. So we built that, and then we tried to come to with just a metering service. And folks said, well, this is great, but where's billing? I said, okay, well, we planned to build that anyway, so we went back and started building billing. In hindsight, we probably should have just stayed with metering for a while. And, I think we turned too soon because we talked with a few customers, prospects, and they were looking at the world, metering goes into billing. So I also need a modern billing engine, which was part of our roadmap. But there would have been already enough people out there who could have taken just a metering solution. So that's again sort of that litmus test. We ourselves kind of faltered. So we went back and it took us another 6 months, 8 months to build a billing layer. So we were in development for a year and a half. We were fortunate we had investors who backed that, but that's the crossroads. Yeah.
So if you were to start over and start a company today, what problem space around AI infrastructure would you avoid?
What would you avoid?
Well, if I ask you to do it again, you'd say, I do the same thing again. I would marry the same problem of billing and metering, right? So what would you avoid?
I'd say that's hard to say just because, for me personally, I look at the glass half full. I think there's just so much opportunity. Like, if somebody were to ask me, what do you say would be, like, what is overhyped in AI? I think we should just reserve our judgment right now. Let it play out for a little bit to see, how things go. I mean, you can play the doomsday scenario and all that, but we just don't know. So I think whatever is overhyped today may not be overhyped and may also kind of balance out. But back to your question, I think what I wouldn't do, I think just given where the landscape is, clearly I think the model generation market, I think, is kind of solidified. I think inference is where it's at, which kind of folks have been already saying now for about a year, and I think we're starting to see that play out, which is great for companies like Amberflo and others who are looking to, because that's the value-added layer, right?
So, my perception of infra companies, including a company like yours, right, is you would fall under the infra category, wouldn't you? Is that an Amazon could build what you have in half the time, a quarter of your time. So then, as an investor, if I went and invested in you, you would die, is my fear, if a public cloud vendor comes in and realizes they just want the same thing and they choose not to buy you out and they just go ahead and with the technology in-house. So what are you doing to protect yourself on that?
Yeah, fair question. So we actually thought about this. Just coming from AWS, I had a little bit of an idea how they think about stuff. So our view was that while we are infrastructure for business operations, billing, metering. I'm not building compute. I'm not doing storage. So second,
But billing and metering is
I'll tell you,
necessary, yeah.
no, it's true. So, however, where the opportunity we saw, where Amazon, even if they were to do it, it would not really completely cross over with us, as the ship had already sailed where most companies are already multi-cloud.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So that was the landscape. At least you have two vendors, now even more. And now with AI, even more so. Things are getting more diverse.
But then, in my experience, but I'm an old timer now, when I was looking at customers actively, I realized that it was mostly the massive companies that wanted a multi-cloud strategy, like Fortune 500 companies, right? Who were paranoid that Amazon would take over their business, so they'd have an Azure strategy, and therefore now they have 2 clouds, 3 clouds. So it's not the common strategy, and therefore, doesn't that limit your market sizing and restrict you severely if your differentiation is that you're multi-cloud?
So I'll complete our story. You're right. It's mid-market or not. You can say that's multi-cloud. But I would then say, don't. The hyperscalers will not solve everything. At some point, if you get product market fit and you achieve velocity, you have an advantage. I mean, it takes time to build something. So even though they have all the money in the world and resources, that's just the nature of software. So there was a little bit of that, if nobody had done it, if we can get ahead and actually build a platform, and that will just give us a continuous lead, just because, and we see this all the time, right? Just because Microsoft have the money and resources to do it, they can't. Right now, there's more tailwind. So we are seeing, at least with the AI LLM, there is more diversification. So somebody who was only doing, let's say, AWS as my only cloud provider is still wanting to use Gemini. Okay, Amazon is not going to give you a metering service that cuts across different cloud platforms. So that's what I mean. I think things are becoming elastic, more shared, more diverse. And I think this pattern is going to continue to broaden. Right? There'll be a bunch of LLM providers across different spectrum and through different cloud operators, native ones. We have companies who are using CoreWeave, purpose-built GPU providers. So that's another cloud in their mix. Amazon now is going to give you the tools to meter that.